Hey guys, it's Abby or By the Angel Books, and today I'm going to be discussing The Opposite of Love by Julie Buxbaum. So yeah, I'm going to be doing a book discussion of it. I do want to give a little disclaimer for this video and a couple to come. I just have not been on my game with my book reviews. I have not been filming them when I read books, and I just continue to read books, so I don't have reviews ready. I actually did film this video once, quite a while ago when I actually read it, which was in January, but for some reason that footage got cut off about halfway through, so here I am redoing it. Like all of my book discussions, I'm going to give a short little synopsis, and then I will get into my actual thoughts on the book itself, which means there will probably be spoilers, but do not worry, I'll give a synopsis and then warn you before I get into that part. This is basically an adult chick lit novel about this girl named Emily, who is a 29-year-old lawyer. Her boyfriend Andrew is very clearly about to propose to her, and she breaks up with him on a whim, which is not uncommon for her to do these kind of sporadic, odd acts, I guess. She definitely has a very interesting way that she narrates and a very interesting thought process she goes through. Basically, this is just kind of your journey on her self-discovery, and it's very just light and fluffy and lovely to read. Although it definitely does kind of have some dark points. Another aspect that I liked about this is all of the characters were very, very strong. So if you're looking for a book that has strong characters, first of all, Emily is a very strong female lead. She knows, well, she doesn't necessarily know what she's doing, but she definitely does not act as a doormat. And she's got some fantastic friends. I will say she has these two friends that I did not realize there were two of them at first. I thought it was one girl that was her friend, and as I continued to read, I realized there was actually two different people. But nevertheless, I feel like all of the characters had their own, you know, personal development throughout that you could see, and they all were very individual, and through their development they were already very well developed side characters, which is sometimes a rarity. I gave this book 4 stars. It was lovely, it was nice to read. It definitely did not blow my mind in any way, but it did make me feel things. I did cry at some points, and overall it was a nice read. So that's kind of it for my synopsis slash non-spoiler kind of thoughts on it. I definitely would recommend picking this up if you're into this kind of genre, this kind of self-discovery story. I definitely would recommend picking it up. Well, here we are, off to the spoiler section. Goodbye. If you have not read this book, I would suggest leaving now and coming back if and when you do read it. So like I said earlier at the very beginning of this video, I got way behind on my book reviews, but I still want to share my thoughts because I want to do the thing where you do a review for every single book that you've ever read. That way I can look back at some points, and that way I can start discussions, which is a lot of what BookTube's about, and yes. That being said, this review may not be as thorough as I would like it to be. And the next upcoming around 4 probably will be that same way, just because I will continue to be behind. Anyway, enough about that. I want to start by talking about Emily herself. Obviously, I had just mentioned I really thought her thought process was really interesting, and just in general, I thought she was like a really cool narrator to read from the perspective of. I'm very glad that Julie Buxbaum did this in first person rather than third person, even if it was limited, because Emily had such an interesting thought process. The way she thought about things, the way she calculated things, and I don't know if that had to do with her upbringing, with her kind of that same thought process dad, or if it had to do with her being a lawyer or just her being herself. It was definitely a very refreshing person to read from. It wasn't like anything I'd necessarily read before. It was different, but then not too weird where it was unrealistic. On the lines of being unrealistic, I really appreciate the fact that Julie Buxbaum was a lawyer at some point. I'm not saying non-lawyers or people who have only ever been writers cannot write characters that are lawyers. That is not at all what I'm saying. Writers can do fantastic things and get in the minds of people that they're not. I think it was good that Julie Buxbaum did happen to be a lawyer before she was an author, because there definitely was points where the writing almost could have sounded pretentious, and I don't like using that word for places where it shouldn't be, or it could be made out to seem that way, or that there was a lot of metaphors or a lot of big vocabulary, and again, it is an adult novel and I am a 14-year-old. But none of it felt overdone, and I don't know if that's because I was like, well, this chick knows what it's like to be a lawyer, or if that just happened to be she knew how to portray it in a way that would make her and other lawyers seem good, but also show what they're really like. Maybe I'm thinking way too into this, which is very possible, but I really felt like her background showed a lot in Emily, and it was really sweet. We're still kind of on the train of thought, this is everywhere, but sort of on the train of thought of Emily's head. I really liked her whole obsession almost with preserving memories and preserving people. She talked about it a lot. She talked about preserving Andrew in the time that they were together, and she wished she had preserved him more. She talked about needing to preserve her granddad because he was dying, and she talked about wanting to preserve Ruth because she was such an important figure in her life. And just, I don't know, it's just, it was such a cool idea, this idea of preserving people and preserving events, and really all it is memories, but she was, like I said, almost obsessed with it. Like, she wouldn't, obviously you don't get another chance to remember one event, but she was so focused on making sure that she got that memory, which I thought was really interesting, an interesting way to think about life, I guess. I do want to definitely mention the other characters. Like I said earlier, I thought the side characters were really well developed, and I also liked the family element of it. Both of those kind of play into the same idea that I'm trying to get across. Basically, just all the characters that weren't Emily were still really great. I loved all of her friends. I thought they were all unique, and I know I said I got the two girls mixed up, but that's because I was kind of just, you know, lightly reading it, and I just didn't really remember the names as well. But all of her friends were definitely very distinctive, and they had their own things, and they were real, and they were raw, and they felt like someone I could know, someone I could be friends with, which was really cool, because reading inside of Emily's head, you want to feel like those are your friends, I guess. Also, I just want to mention Ruth, because she kind of falls on the barrier line between friends and family. She was a phenomenal, I loved the character of Ruth. Obviously, Emily does not have a prominent mother or grandmother figure in her life, and Ruth definitely takes that role, as well as just taking the role of caretaker for her grandfather, and also being Emily's friend, and also being able to grieve with Emily about the situation because they both care about her grandfather. The fact that she used to be in law as well and is kind of a mentor figure. Ruth was just kind of there in all aspects, and I thought it was really cool, I guess. Other side of the side characters would be that of her family, which I loved the non-traditional family element. I mean, Emily didn't have any siblings, which that in itself isn't that different. There's definitely a lot of single children out in the literary world, but she didn't have any siblings, she didn't have a mom, she didn't have any of that, like, traditional, here is me and my siblings and my mom and my dad and we're all perfect and happy. No, she didn't have a mom, and she had a very workaholic dad, and she had a dying grandfather, but their bonds were definitely still there. They weren't there in the way that you would be like, that's a great relationship, but they were continuing to work on it, and they continued to love each other unconditionally. Emily almost had to step in the role of convincing her dad that he needed to take the time to see his father who was dying, and she kind of strengthened the bond between them, and it kind of just made this full circle. Everyone helped strengthen the bonds in between each other, and they all strengthened the bonds in between themselves. I don't know, it was just a very nice thing. And I definitely cried when the grandfather died, which was interesting because I cry a lot in books. I do get very emotional at things. However, normally if it's a character that doesn't necessarily appear much, or you don't have many actual like one-on-one interactions with them, it won't affect me as much. Like I'll be like, oh, that's sad for a main character, and maybe I'll grieve for them, but hardly do I ever do it for characters who don't show up as much, which is just aiding to my fact that Julie Buxbaum knows how to write side characters. This is obviously kind of a short and sweet review. I don't have much to say about it, and it has been a while, so I don't necessarily remember other things I wanted to say about it, but the last thing I want to say is the lack of love in this made me happy. The thing is, it wasn't absent of love, which was good because I like, you know, a good, cute little relationship. However, it was definitely not overbearing, which could have definitely put this book down to a 1 or a 2. This book was about Emily and her journey, and not her journey towards Andrew, her journey towards herself. He was never a force driving her to realize who she was. And they obviously got back together at the end, but it wasn't perfect. It wasn't just like, oh, I see you again, let me leap into your arms because now I've changed and it's so much better. It showed that, you know, he loved her then and he'll continue to love her now even when it's difficult, which I thought really showed the strength in their relationship. So I'm glad it was there at the beginning and the end, and it definitely added some plot points in there, but it wasn't the driving force of the book, which was really nice. That is really kind of all I have to say about it, I guess. I feel like this didn't have many points I made. There's like 4 in there in general. I didn't talk about many of the plot details, but then again, I read this book 2 months ago. But anyway, if you have read this book, I would still love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. We can start a conversation. Like always, make sure you give this video a like, leave a comment below, and subscribe. And of course, only if you want to, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!